I'm going to be
She's not
acting
here
chair this
today.
morning.
Oh, Kara's dead already.
Go for it. Here we go.
Let the records know he was like going to this with
All right, first thing on our agenda is the minutes of February 2013. Has everybody read those minutes?
Yes.
I read them.
Any recommendations for revisions?
Yeah, I had sent one into Christine. And did you get the email?
Yes.
Okay. I don't even remember what I sent in, but I did send in something about a little change on there. Which project was it?
Oh, I don't remember. I don't have it in front of me.
I don't have either, but
Yeah.
it was a minor little change.
And I made a.
It was coastal stewardship, that's right. It was town of Brookhaven, in fact, failed to do any kind of seeker on it, and we were the only ones who turned out to do it. I was talking to Tom Perano, and the applicant, Captain Johnson, simply did nothing. So our seeker should cover it.
Okay.
So I made that correction.
Evie, you have some first?
Yeah, and I made a change because I was at the meeting, and I guess I didn't sign the papers, so she didn't have me, so now she put me in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You may not have a quorum because I was not there, so I can't vote.
We're just, you know.
I can't either.
So you abstain?
I have to, yes.
The other thing is a quorum present?
Yeah.
All right, I'm voting. An abstention, I assume, probably is both, but. All those in favor of the meeting minutes as corrected? Okay. All those opposed? All right. Minutes passed. Next thing on the agenda, we have some correspondence from the Suffolk County Water Authority, their annual report for 2012. I told Christine to put that in the file, so if anybody would like to see that, you're welcome to ask Christine and you can view it. But it's not a secretable item, or it's not something before the council, it's just information purposes. All righty. Next thing on the agenda is the Historic Trust docket, is the report from the director, Richard.
Good morning. Just have one update on the housing program. We do have a vacancy at this point at the Isaac Mills House in St. James. So that is a concern because it's isolated in that part. And so we will be surveying our county park employees to see if anyone's interested, and then if need be, we'll have to send a letter out to all county employees to try to get that occupied. But that is an early building, dates to 1719, and we are concerned to get that occupied.
Rich?
Yes.
Question on that, I'm just curious. Was this just someone, the previous tenant, was this someone who just wanted to make a decision to move out, or was there a problem with the house or anything like that?
Made a decision to move out. It was actually a county park police that was getting married, and guessing his wife-to-be wanted to move.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and he had a
So
dog.
on new digs.
Right.
So it begins.
Yeah, there was not a problem.
Okay, because I'm always thinking of the Stimson house, which
I don't know what
is
you're
always,
talking about.
Yeah, no, that was, there was no issues like that at all. If you know, we had broken that house down and just had a small apartment within the house, not the use of the whole house to take care of that, the rent issue. And we actually, when we had that appraised, we broke it into 3 different appraisals of different sections of the house. So if there was just a single person that could use part of it, if there's a couple that could use more, and if a family that could take the whole house. And that seemed to work.
While you're talking about that, abutting the front porch of that house is one of the largest trees I think we have on Long Island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Given what we've experienced with our storms, have you gone to the trouble to check whether that tree is likely to stand?
Well, actually, yes, believe it or not, because we replaced the whole roof there. The wood roof is all new. And at that time, we did have an arborist check the tree, and we did trim some of the branches back that were hanging over the roof itself. So, and he cleaned it up. So we did have it inspected at that time, which is not that long ago. And Nick, I don't know if you have any other comments related to the conditions of that tree?
That was I would say 2 or 3 years ago now, maybe?
Right.
Or so. Just that he was impressed with the overall health of the tree, given its age. And we had them significantly lighten it up to try and help to avert some of that in the future. It has compromised, I think, the foundation of the building too, somewhat in the basement. There's evidence that the tree is actually bowing in the foundation, so there's a few issues there. But with respect to the tree itself, I think we're in good shape.
The tree's probably in better shape than the house.
Yeah.
And
Is-
yeah, the picnic was.
Is the compromise to the house deleterious to the house? I mean, is it something that's of great concern?
I'm gonna say no. There is some problems with the foundation, but it's not caved in. We'll have to rectify that. To continue the residential use, I can use the building as is. If I was to upgrade to office use for that space, I'd have to do some additional foundation and framing work. But it can stay as is for now.
It is, okay. So it's just bowing, it isn't actually opened?
Right.
Okay.
And we definitely don't want to take the tree down, so I'll just
No.
rebuild the foundation as needed to accommodate the tree.
Yeah, you set it in or something.
Right.
Yeah, this thing's big.
Okay, and the contracts, we're still working on the contracts. Nothing's been finalized with the group that we're working on at this point. So there's nothing new to report there. The revised Timber Point Clubhouse renovations for the office public assembly use. That, to remind you, the committee had tabled final approval on the stair tower that is required to be added to the Timber Point Clubhouse for public use of the second floor. And the architect did come back. It was mainly the looks of the windows and configuration of the windows, especially how they looked relating to the existing windows on the south facade of the building. And so the architect took a second look, and you should have sent in your packet the new designs, which he switched to just multi-pane windows, not the single pane windows, which related to the earlier windows in the building. The multi-pane relate to the Colonial Revival era, which is fine. We are interpreting that time period there. So I'll point out the changes. We added 2 windows on each level, the second and third level on the passageway, the walkway that goes to the building. There were no windows at that area before, so that was a comment that was made. And in the tower itself, on the south facade, we changed the window design, then added a window to the first floor in the brick section. On the north facade, we added a window to the design and then switched them out to be the multi-pane windows. And on the east facade, we changed it from the smaller, like attic kind of windows that were there and put in 2 pair of multi-pane windows, full size. And also, just realized there was some discussion of even additional like pairings of windows on the south facade. When he really took a look at how the stairway lined up, he just thought it would be very awkward that the staircases, went through these windows. So he thought for the interior layout, the single windows worked the best. And at this point, I'll just put out for any comments or questions. But this is, otherwise, everyone reviewed the project, was okay with the project. It was just the window configuration and design. Marian's just pointing out the window wall in the dining room. That actually was approved. The original design was approved at the last meeting. So we're just looking at, it was presented in 2 parts. The dining room windows were approved at the last meeting, but the window design for the tower was tabled. We'll take a second look.
I guess you do this
No, I think that it certainly makes a big difference. And I understand what he's talking about with the, he doesn't want the windows going past the stair going past the windows. But I think this makes a huge difference, and I think it's go.
Yeah, I agree with Eva. This really now comports with the structure of the building. Previously, it was just a brick tower just sort of sitting out there, and it looked like very clearly an add-on. The way he has aligned the windows with the stories, first story, second story, third story, is very, very pleasing to the eye. I'm not an architect, but if I was a buyer of a house, this is something I would say is good. I know this is not necessarily best done by committee, but we are the committee, we are charged with this. And our opinion does, have some bearing upon what happened. So I'm very pleased with this.
Any other comments or questions? So I think, Jim, just as the historic trust?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
take a recommendation for approval as to the historic trust per se.
I'll make a recommendation for a approval as is with the new window design for the stair tower. So it's, do I need to say anything else other than that? No, that's it.
I'll second.
Okay. Those in favor, please? Anybody opposed? Okay, resolution passes.
Okay, thank you. The next project is the proposed Long Island Maritime Museum Grenade Boat Exhibit Shelter. And this is a new project, but it does relate to the conceptual plan that you approved in 2002. And if you look at the sheets that were sent to you, we'll go through those before I ask Steve Jones, the executive director of the museum, to explain the project in detail. The first sheet, if you see it's shaded in blue. That's pointing to what was called the annex. This was to be a wood frame construction, additional exhibit space attached to the front of the small craft building. And the reason for this was to put a special exhibit there on the boat builder Gil Smith, who's from Patchogue. And they have a shed building that was his, that was going to be incorporated into that space, and hopefully boats like they're getting donated now would be added to that exhibit. Because of the donation of this shelter and the boat, they decided to change gears a bit to not do the addition, which was approved in the conceptual plan, but to split the exhibit into two, that you have this exterior exhibit building near the entrance, and if you just flip through a couple of sheets, this is the building we're discussing today. And this is, the reason this came up is that it is a Great South Bay catboat by Gil Smith that is at the East Hampton Marine Museum. And they're doing some redesign of the grounds there, and they approached the Maritime Museum offering to donate this since it related more to their site being on the Great South Bay and their collections. So the two museums have agreed to do that. If you flip the next page, you'll see the boat that's coming with the building. And the next page shows you the proposed location. There's a walkway that goes to the small craft building, and this will be positioned just south of that walkway. So when you walk past the walkway, you could look into this building. It's not a public assembly building, it's just an exhibit building.
Rich, can I ask you a question? You're
Yeah.
pointing out locations and stuff like that. I'm on the main map. I've been looking at this for a day. I can't figure out where you're putting this thing. I can't
Okay,
believe
go
it.
to the aerial, see if it helps. The aerial might help.
I know it's complex, but okay.
If you look at the aerial, and then you see the gazebo up in the top left?
And that's what I can't locate on the
Okay, the main
map.
museum building is just north of that, off the page.
Okay,
and
so
so-
it's not on this page. Or is
No,
it?
the main building is here, the gazebo is over here.
All right. It says demo on this one, so that's why I couldn't figure this
Yeah,
out.
and that's also, that was part of the
confusing.
original conceptual
Yeah.
plan, which is being revised to keep those
So this
buildings.
is sort of in the center of the complex, if I'm understanding the mapping correctly.
Actually, it's
More or
more on
less.
the east
No.
More
side.
easterly.
The small craft building is at the far
Like
east
somewhere over here.
property line.
They're in this area, because that thing is here, so he's going over here.
So we got something marked site restoration, is that it?
Find it.
Put an X on the spot on the map. Otherwise, I can't figure out where we are. I mean, I know I'm on the South Shore somewhere. I don't have a longitude, I don't have latitude.
Okay, well, this,
I don't have minutes of arc or anything like that.
put an X where this structure's going.
Okay.
Here, go ahead.
Sorry, Steve, I just can't figure it.
And if you look, you have an aerial that shows you the positioning, and also Photoshop image of where the building would be located, your last sheet. And there you can see the bay is to your right. And just realize this enclosure, all the walls, including the south wall, can come off in season, so you'd have a clear view like through the structure. You still retain that great South Bay view.
Yeah, that's,
And then off-season, the walls can be put back up. So this is a donation from the East Hampton Historic Society, actually, who supervises the Marine Museum there. And it fits in with the interpretive program that the Long Island Maritime Museum
yeah.
is working on with Gil Smith, and replaces the exhibit addition that was in the original conceptual plan.
What is the square footage of this vis-a-vis
This is,
the,
I think, 10 by 30.
So somewhere.
this is 10 by 30, but what was the original building?
Stays.
I don't,
Yeah,
Steve,
yeah.
I'm gonna let
No,
Steve jump
or
in
it's not
now.
very low, yeah.
The question for the original annex, do you have a sense of what that square footage was gonna be? Your plan?
No, it was just shown conceptually on the 2002 plan, but it was gonna be big enough to have at least one boat and some other information about Gil Smith, so I would say probably maybe like 1,000 square feet or.
So it's comparable in size to what you were originally planning?
No, it's
No,
less.
it's
Smaller.
much smaller.
It's
It's
much
smaller,
smaller.
it's maybe
Much
what,
smaller, yes.
300 or
It's much
400
smaller.
square feet at the most?
So are you gonna be coming back in another couple of years saying you're gonna need another building to house more boats?
No, we're taking a portion inside the small craft building, and we're going to have a building within a building. We'll take what's the Gil Smith carving shed, which was a building where Gil would go carve decoys and stuff to get away from his wife out in the backyard in Patchogue. We have that building up on a trailer,
That comes out.
and we're gonna take that building and put it inside the small craft building, and so that people can walk in there, we'll have better security for it inside.
Is this part of the historic record, the fact that he's trying, we have this,
No, that will not show up in the secret documents. No.
well, should.
Eva?
Oh, I have a couple questions about the structure. I like the fact that it's being tucked in that area, because I think that has continuity in my mind of how the exhibits are going. The only questioning I guess I really have is, I know this is kind of the kind of perspective here shows the building. It may not be exactly where you're going to be putting it, but my concern has to do with the trees, really, and that we move the building closer to the walkway, away from the trees, to not impact, the root systems for the trees.
Have you measured, Steve?
Yes, we're moving it into a large area that doesn't have any trees or utilities, in front of existing trees, and there will be. I can't say we'll stay. There's, I don't know about the drip lines of all the trees, but we certainly are going to stay as close to the walkway, because the idea is to encourage people to go to the small craft building by saying, oh, well, let's go look at that little shelter there, and then
Yeah.
they kind of see that there's a building further on down the walkway.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's great.
But
And
we did, if we take the walkway to the first tree, that could be impacted, it would be a good 50 feet off the walkway. We're only going to be 10 feet off the walkway. So I think 10 feet deep off the walkway.
All right, because this rendering, the three-dimensional kind of makes it look like it's pretty close to the trunk of the tree, so that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, our photoshopping skills leave a lot to be
I know,
desired.
I
but
figured that might be
yeah.
one of the issues, but I also was curious about the foundation aspects of this. I assume they're going to be hand dug.
Yes,
Okay, and will they be in pier form? Or?
yes.
Okay, that's cool. And I know the building, since I'm an East Hampton resident, I know that they worked on it. It's not that old, this building, if I recall.
The shelter, yes.
And I think that's gonna be a great attribute to, like you said, for a segue into the other bill. I like that a lot.
I mean, that was my
This-
question, Steve, as to whether this building was gonna be anchored, you know, in case of future storms, we want it floating into the,
It'll be, yes, it'll be pier,
Pier, okay,
sitting
all
on
right.
piers.
Which is perfect.
And it will be like it is now. Well, it'll be a little more open on the bottom than it is now. The water from Sandy came up across the walkway, came close to the grape arbor and the BB house, but did not actually go there completely. So there was like maybe 3 inches of water where this coming up where this building would be. So if we have pier construction, we allow a few inches underneath. It's going to provide for additional air circulation under the
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
and it will also guard against the water coming up. and-
right, well,
and
that's good,
damaging
because
the
I was
building.
just afraid if you have an inundation higher than the last one, I mean, and this thing isn't anchored, it'll be just floating out.
Yeah.
All right,
Well, but the anchors will be, you'll have
The piers are
hurricane
fine.
anchoring to it, I assume, from the piers to the structure.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you may have to do additional strapping, I don't know, up above. But, so it doesn't blow, because you're gonna have that
Yes.
uplift. So you're gonna have to
To
do that.
make sure the roof doesn't lift off. Yes.
Yeah, because that could happen. More so than any damage of it moving around.
all righty, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to, as part of the Historic Trust, to accept the application and the placement of this shelter at the Maritime Museum in its location.
Yeah, if I might amend this, we haven't reviewed this prior, so this is, I assume, because you're bringing in a new structure to the site, it would be considered an unlisted action and a secret with a negative.
And I'll throw a seeker in there also,
As well as
as
the historic trust approval.
C, from the CEQ aspect, will be an unlisted neg deck.
And I'll second.
Okay? All those people in favor? Any opposition? Okay?
Question for you.
Yeah.
Now, does this automatically become part of the master plan, or does the master plan have to get reviewed as a separate process?
I just wanted to comment on that because you brought something up earlier, which is where I thought you were going. The master plan, don't forget
It's not a
that was
master
conceptual. It was a conceptual plan, and the agreement was that each element of it would come back to the council as it was implemented. So this has kind of been an evolving document. Including this now is almost more confusing than not because there's a lot of elements here that aren't moving forward. The removal of the gazebos, a few other things on here. But when you were asking earlier about the size of this building compared to what had previously been reviewed by the council, I thought you were going to suggest that because you guys had already reviewed the previous conceptual plan for a larger building, that therefore you were going to be fine with a smaller building, even in a somewhat modified location. But that's actually not true. I think the first element, when we brought the plan, we also brought the Kenstein gate at the same time. I think that was the most pressing component at the time. Do you recall that?
Not in 2002. It was there were some other things. The gate was already there when we did the 2001-2002
Okay.
plan.
Well, I just remember if there was a couple of priority elements that were going to be implemented sooner rather than later, and that the other elements in the plan would come back to the council then. We're now working with the museum to get an update to the plan and get their priorities prioritized and bring that back to the
Nick, I was part of the council back then, and I remember the discussions, and that was specifically what we were looking at. Was it was conceptual, the museum was evolving, and we did, as I remember, we did not want to do a firm master plan because things were coming in. And as such, the most we felt comfortable with was a generalized review of what was going on. We knew it was in a floodplain, we knew it was sitting near the water, etc. I believe there were DEC permits involved with it. That part I'm a little bit hazy on.
Well, a lot of the implementation involves DEC permitting, and we work hand in hand with the museum on a routine basis to
Yeah,
get the
I
permits in
remember the
place.
Marine Railway when it first was proposed and
Yes.
stuff like that. But anyway, getting back to it, I remember this as a conceptual plan. Again, we did not want to lock things in. We knew things were evolving, and that was the way it was presented to us.
Actually, we didn't even have the answers to give you, so there wasn't enough meat there to call it a master plan.
Yeah.
It was more a
So that's why we
conceptual
just
plan.
sort of went with what we did, and we did what we usually do in this situation, which is come back as things,
Right.
come back to us as things start occurring. So in that sense, I don't think we're locked into what happened in 2002. It's a basic plan. It's not like they're constructing a 10-story apartment building over there. We're doing something that's essentially comporting with the mission of the museum and trying to set something up over there to make it more useful and attractive to the public. And that was, again, what we looked at in 2002, if I remember correctly.
Well, regardless of how informal a plan, whatever you want, a conceptual plan, what have you, it's the department's wish to get back with the museum and get an update to this. Now 10 years have gone by.
Well, now they're more
Get this
formatted
cleaned
at
up.
this point in time.
There are other things that have been implemented, some that have been eliminated altogether. And so to refer back to this is really, as I said, it can
Well, I'm
be...
just saying it doesn't lock us in, but yeah, I
Right.
take your point as to a master plan eventually happening, and that's something that I think we have a former planner who may be somehow associated with the museum at this point in time.
Well, it might just be another conceptual plan, but it'll be more
Yeah.
more reflective of today's priorities.
I think
that's
it's
all.
better to stick with a conceptual plan because it's more flexible.
Right.
In the future with the
Mhm.
understanding that, well, you approve the concepts as they are.
Yes.
However, you will come back with any final plans. In addition, this requires New York State DEC permits, correct?
Well,
I'm not sure.
I think it's greater than 300 feet. The Ockers building, which is represented on this second page, I think it is. That's the building that's going up and over the Marine Railway. That's the subject of a DEC permit. Well, if it's greater than 300 feet.
All right, well, I'm just saying for the neg deck, the negative declaration, if the council gonna go for that way, basically is.
All necessary
you know,
permits will...
is Subject to all necessary
Yeah, I'll
permits.
Sure.
make my
may be
motion to
obtained.
do that. And Steve, by the way, Steve wants to say something.
Steve?
Yeah, there's a new planning mechanism being put into place as part of a long-term license agreement between the Parks Department and the Maritime Museum. That concept is that every year, the Maritime Museum will be updating its short-term plan to indicate where money will be spent in the next 12 months on the site, and then there will be a longer-term document submitted as part of that process, so that we will have kind of a rolling sort of a thing, because our new license agreement calls for the Maritime Museum to start making some investments in the same way, not to the financial extent, but in the same way that the golf course concessionaires and some of the catering concessionaires are required to make investments.
Will this plan this rolling plan lock you into something? For example, I'm looking at this
No.
particular donation. You never know what's going to come in.
Right.
Right. No, we will still have the opportunity to drive Richard and Nick crazy with modifications as we go.
Well, that's the
It's
purpose.
part of the fun, you know? It's just,
Okay. So there's flexibility built in.
yes.
What do you got first and second?
Yeah,
Eva?
yeah. Clearly, this is a property that has a lot of potential, and it's been, and I think the direction this is going is a very positive and appropriate direction. I think that it's probably underutilized, it's underappreciated, and I can see so many more programs going on here, it's, you know, as part of our American heritage, and that in particular to the, you know, to the Long Island in this county. So I think it's going in a good direction. I like the idea of the flexibility of a plan. I didn't know that that's what was happening, so I do like hearing about that.
Okay, so
You already got
We
a
have a
CEQ and a historic
first and a
trust.
second, so I call the vote, all those people in favor?
You already did it.
Oh, I did? Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What does Sinead mean, Steve?
That is actually, the guy who built the boat, his name was Jack Danes. He died last year. Danes spelled backwards. So that's where Sinad comes from. But it's a
Sinad.
boat that has a lot of history to it, and East Hampton Historical Society will be providing us with a lot of the history. We have probably a good 15 Gill Smith boats in our collection. Gill Smith was the local Leonardo da Vinci of boat builders. He was a guy who was able to successfully combine the technical aspects of fast wood sailboats with the design and artistic beauty of how the hull and deck were shaped.
Did he have
So
whitefish?
people in wood boat
Yeah.
aficionados worship this guy. So I think for me the boats look pretty cool, and they're very different than what you would normally see as a wood sailboat. So that's what our Mystic, Connecticut, for instance, always consults with us when they have anything that has to do with Gill Smith, and we do have that's kind of the core of our wood boat collection.
Where did he live?
Patchogue, and he built on the Patchogue River for a very long period, for a good 40 years or more. He was cranking out, maybe 20 boats a year or so.
I have a question, Steve, or Nick. This project does not go before the legislature, right? This is approved by the Parks Department?
There's no funding for this.
What? There's no
Yeah,
funding.
this is-
No.
Well, any funding is from the Maritime Museum. There's no county funding.
So therefore, the CEQ recommendation goes to the Parks Department. Doesn't go across the street to the legislature and county exec. I just want to note that.
And just a comment, I think it's wonderful when you can get a hull into Islip Airport, into the lobby space there. That's just phenomenal. Green Airport does that up in Rhode Island, and when you land there, you instantly feel like, oh yeah, Narragansett Bay, that's right, the whole Newport thing, and they have one nice hull. It happens to be a racing hull, so it gives you a new feeling. But the way you can do that in Islip, that brings it right back to these hulls, locks in, this is Long Island, this is not just a stepway back to Manhattan.
Well, we'll see how that goes in a few weeks. We're going to be placing a boat up in the Southwest Concourse on the second floor, and we have to get past the TSA security carrying this boat. And if Mike thought it was funny watching us down there, wait till we get up to the airport.
Good luck. I think
Make
it's
sure
worth-
you
it's
get
worth your
press
effort.
over
Thank
there.
you.
I come by the Dennison
Gotta-
building a couple days ago, and they're carrying a boat out. No security, they're just stealing the boat. About 20 of them.
Do they X-ray the boat?
Yeah.
All right, if we move on, is that the end of the Historic Trust docket?
Very exciting. It's very exciting.
Okay, next thing on the type 2 action list is the ratification of March 5th, 2013 packet. I do have a question upon reviewing this. Resolution number 1153 and 1154 authorize acquisition of land under the new Suffolk Water Drinking Water Program and the old Suffolk Water Drink. Is anybody here to address that? Because that's clearly an unlisted action. Requiring some type of neg deck and an environmental assessment form. Did we review this previously?
Yes. Rollstone rather. I don't know, it's misnamed in this 1153, but Rollstone Estates, we brought Town of Islip here. We went over it was a reuse of a former greenhouse facility for active recreation.
Was this like a
You guys had
gigantic
concerns
parcel?
about buffer.
Yeah, this was the one they were going to put soccer fields in. It's by the railroad.
I think it's lacrosse fields by the railroad in Sayville.
Yeah, that's right.
Dave Genoway from Town of Islip Planning came.
Yeah.
Loretta and I.
It was a Lindsay project, as I remember, and again, it had that like 200-foot long driveway.
That's right.
And it had problems with contamination of toxic and hazardous substances with,
Satisfied to that satisfaction of Suffolk County Health.
okay, so this has all been approved and it's been cleaned up and,
Yeah, I don't recall. It's within the past 6 months, I would
Yeah.
say, that we were here with that.
Yeah, I would say about 3 months ago.
There was a controversy over from the neighbors about the
Yeah.
That's right.
entrance. Has
Yes.
that been cleared up too?
Not to their satisfaction, no. But I think the council asked the town to go back and continue dialogue with the town, with the neighborhood.
Actually, you should rephrase that. What happened was there was still controversy going on, and we asked the town to go back, Dave Genoway, to go back and talk to them. And I've since talked to Dave Genoway about this. I saw him, I don't know, 2 months ago at another meeting. And he said that he was still in contact with the neighbors and they were going to be talking about it, and he thought buffering would be a useful, shall I say, thank you, useful mitigation to bring to them.
I don't have it in front of me. Do you guys have the resolution? But the elements of the CEQ were incorporated into the resolution. I think there was a reference to lighting,
Yeah.
buffering.
Yeah, we wanted dark skies and the buffering, again, that 200.
Well, no lighting of the fields whatsoever. I think that was more the issue. But at any rate, the comments of the CEQ were incorporated to the reso.
Into the acquisition result?
Mhm.
And along with a neg deck?
Yes.
Because we did neg deck it.
Was there also an issue of commercial vehicles coming in to peddle hot dogs and stuff?
No, there's a building on site, I think, for a
Yeah,
concession
concession.
and
Why you got a truck?
Larry's
I'll
Tacos.
sell it to you.
Larry's Tacos, I've tasted them, not that good.
All right, that's handled. How about the next one, Nick?
Two other questions?
the other one.
Oh,
Go, continue.
Oh, I've been to this site, 1154. It's a Pine Barrens core parcel. It's relatively straightforward. I can't see any concerns of the CEQs on that. It's
but
opposite.
There's no form on this? There's no assessment that's submitted?
I think Loretta brought this to the council. I missed the last one or two CEQ meetings, but I was asked to go inspect this property. There was a homesteading site. It came up in the phase one. They asked me to go out and take a look at that. I determined there's no long-term concerns for the property. Got that back to real estate, and it looks like it's now moving forward.
Now that the neg deck and the council's concerns are in that resolution too?
I don't think the council had any concerns. I'd have to, I guess we could check with Loretta and see when that came to the council. I wasn't present for that one.
I don't remember. But
Okay, well, in the future, if we did review these things, can we put down, neg deck recommended or something like that?
Is this still Rollstone? It was November.
No, we're on the next, I'm on the next one.
Yeah.
here
No,
for the
but she's
4%.
right.
The Rollstone is,
Oh, November?
it's, I don't know why I have it, but I have it.
Okay, well, if the CQ has, reviewed these and previously made a recommendation, then
Do you want?
I only had questions, because,
I don't, no, I'm good with that. Yeah.
I looked at the rest of them.
I guess the question is whether or not the resolution, this one came through the council. I can't. Is Loretta here?
is Loretta
Let me
here?
see, she's here.
I think that in the future, if things for acquisition are gonna be back on the agenda, then technically, someone should be here to answer the question.
Yeah, but generally, we don't really look at them in terms of the staff recommendations.
Well, yeah, but this
I
goes
see what you're
across the
saying.
street to the
I know.
legislature with a
In this case,
recommendation
yeah,
on it,
yeah.
and technically,
I said normally.
you
Yeah,
wanna make sure
yeah.
the recommendation is correct and followed up procedurally, that's all.
1206.
Jim, Loretta's not in just yet. She should be in at 10:30.
Come back to it.
Oh, yeah, this is,
Okay, now
that one is.
I don't have any problem with the packet as is, all right? And I simply want these checked to make sure the appropriate secret findings are in the resolutions, so that it's complete. And whatever the council recommended to pass as part of the review process, all right? So,
I'll make a motion then to accept staff recs.
Could I
Just to get it
ask
going.
two other
yeah,
questions?
yeah,
The first question is about 1156 and 1157. And I remember we did the coastal stewards shellfish restoration project. We talked about that as a group. 56 is the fish ladder. Maybe we talked about that. I don't
Yeah, we did.
recall.
Yeah,
But my question is generally about the capital budget and program. These are incremental allocations of money towards a specific project. Does the council have a chance to take a look at like the overall priority as contrasted with just
No.
touching individual ones from a prioritization point of view?
No.
no, I mean, that's up to the legislature and the county exec's office. Council makes recommendations in terms of the potential environmental impacts and the environmental review on the secret.
Of a particular choice, not of
Of
the
a
choices
particular
that they
choice,
could
not
have
the
made
priorities.
Okay.
Like
That's
the,
up,
The
the
second question I have is-
department and the
yeah,
legislature.
the 477 money, for example, is a special committee of the ledge and the outside people and the county executive. For example, Kevin McDonald from North Fork is on there. And they basically prioritize at that point
And
in
we get
time.
to act in response to
Yeah, so we're looking at the environmental impact, they're doing the prioritization.
it. So, in a related way, my second question is about 1205, where there's a grant application going in for a local government efficiency. wastewater operations in the county. Would the council have any ability to affect that from a scoping point of view?
Well, it's a grant application, that's done either by the authorizing bodies, of which there are essentially, and I'm not saying technically, but effectively there are two, which is either the ledge or the exec. And a grant application is just that. When it actually, let's say we get the grant and things come out of it at that time, that's when we get our bite of the apple.
Well, that wasn't my question, but thanks for that clarification. My question was, you end up doing what you planned for. And this is the phase when they're setting their plan in place. They're making a grant application to study something, to evaluate something. That efficiency grant program is pretty broad, but you can do a range of good things when you analyze options. Like an EIS. Can be done a lot of different ways depending on how you scope it. And so in this case, my question is, would there be any chance to affect the scoping of it from a mission point of view, or do we just have to take a look at what comes out the other end?
Actually, what you would do is take a look at what comes out the other end.
Okay,
Garbage in.
that's an answer.
Garbage in, garbage out.
I have no further questions.
Good question.
It's kind of like, say, what comes out the other end is like the Southwest Sewer District is the largest user of Suffolk County water in the county simply because the answer to pollution is dilution. If it comes through the plant, it used to be you throw a fresh water in and pour it goes out in the ocean, you meet the standards. Hopefully, they've done a lot of work over there to improve the, plant's efficiency. But in the past, that happened to be the case. Larry?
Now that you mentioned Southwest Sewer District,
Oh, boy.
Down sewer boy.
there have been sort of some unexplained closures of shellfishing grounds in Great South Bay. And I've heard an allegation that in fact it is due to leakage of the pipe in Great South Bay, but I haven't heard anything from the county and I'd like to know whether in fact we can get a report maybe next month of what the history since Sandy has been with regard to mishaps at the plant, if any.
All right, that'd be a good idea. We could put on the agenda to have DPW come in and answer those questions.
Yeah, I think it'd be
You
good.
think that after Sandy, they might have had some problems with the pipe?
Well, I've heard that allegation made.
Well, Ben actually, remember we reviewed, acquiring sections of pipe for storage for replacement?
Right.
Because the pipe, is reaching its life
Right.
projection, ultimately, they're gonna replace that whole pipe. I don't know whether in today's budget or not,
We
that's
looked
like
at that.
$150
Yeah,
million.
we did.
That
We
extensively.
had, yeah.
Achieving.
What it boils down to is it might be leaking.
Right,
That's-
so yeah, we could ask DPW to come in to address that
To
question.
Because there are
qualify it.
people running around now trying to solve the mystery of why is our shellfish beds being closed because of contamination and this sort of unknown source.
Okay.
We should look at which beds are being closed. I mean,
Yeah.
that would be involved,
Well, they're close to.
is it DEC or
Well,
our health?
DEC does it, but they very often farm it out to the towns to implement.
Well, Chris, you're from Health Department and Office of Ecology,
Yeah, DEC is the agency that closes the shellfish beds.
but have you heard anything about these closures or anything?
No, we usually get announcements
But announcements from who?
from DEC.
Directly from the DEC, not from the towns?
The question is why?
All right, so the question
If
is,
and why.
request DPW to be at the next meeting to give an overview of what is the status of the outfall pipe based on, what they presented to us in the past, whether there's any damage due to Sandy and some other things, and there's
Right.
anything leaking in the bay because areas are being
And we
closed.
need to coordinate with Health Department to find out if there are closures in the area,
Right.
okay? And if there's any.
Well, he just
information on
mentioned that the health department has no,
I know, but.
Jurisdiction.
I mean, there were some closures immediately after the storm.
Well,
Yeah, but that
I
was
don't
from-
know that there's anything.
Well, that could have been, we don't
Fine,
know.
I can look into
Yeah,
that.
just see if there's any closures since the Sandy situation. Anything within a week of Sandy, I would discount,
Right.
unless it's a continuing situation. Larry basically is saying there's allegations out there that there have been closures since then, if I'm understanding you correctly.
So the
Let's
timing
see
of
if there's
those
anything.
closures, yeah, the timing of those closures is critical.
You know, there's a,
When they were happening.
for example, there's an excellent history of what happened in Bay Park in Nassau County, but it would be nice to have a similar history for the Southwest Sewer District.
Okay, so
If anything.
We'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting and request DPW come in with a presentation, please.
Okay.
It's not breaking.
All right, any other comments on the packet? Michael, you have a,
Oh, yeah, I made a motion a couple minutes ago, motion to accept staff recs.
do I have
I'll
a second? Second. Those that approve? Opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, the next thing on the agenda, West Sayville Golf Course ditch to be cleaned. Mr. Gibbons left.
Is it still to be cleaned?
I think Gibbons ran away, so I didn't have to answer the question. This is where West Sable, yeah, I know this ditch.
Yes.
Nick requested maybe we go out of order and.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is the update on status of the sewer infrastructure mapping project, which is Division of Planning and Environment. Do it.
Hi, good morning. My name is DeWitt Davies. I'm with the Division of Planning and Environment here, and
Can you project a little bit more?
yes, I will.
Thank you.
We want to take some time today and give you a status report, an update, if you will, on the comprehensive sewer infrastructure mapping project that people in CEQ were instrumental in getting us interested in accomplishing this particular project. Back in the late period in 2011, Commander Swanson and others prepared a draft of a letter that was sent to the Department of Public Works requesting baseline information on the status of sewer-related things in Suffolk County, and there was a request that this information be collected and portrayed so that CEQ could make some informative judgments with respect to the cumulative impact on projects that they have to voice their opinions on. Last year, in February, Larry and Jim, and I think Lori was on the phone with, we had a meeting here in the office and we discussed the project that Sarah asked us to try to work on during the course of the year. And we can report that at this point we were able to get in contact with the appropriate operating agencies in the various towns and villages in Suffolk County to provide us with the information that we needed to prepare this inventory. In the packet that you have before you, you'll see a summary sheet. We don't have a written report yet on the information, but we have a lot of information that's been mapped, and we have a lot of data, and in fact, it's still undergoing an analysis. Suffice it to say that I have no fancy PowerPoint presentation for you today. We'll be a little bit retrograde. There's actually some paper maps that we have, and we've actually put them on the board with pins.
So last century, so last century.
It's retrograde, I understand, but Steve Jones
Sustainable,
understands
too.
where I'm coming from. Because,
Good one.
but don't request a copy of any of these maps, because I can't give them to you, because we're never going to print them again. At any rate, you will be able to get all this information, because if you turn around to the back second part of your handout, what we have here is we're using the Suffolk County portal to provide all of the background files for all the GIS maps that we have. All the data that's on those maps you can get access to, and if you have a GIS system, which you don't, you would be able to actually print these maps.
So close.
But you will be able to get access to the information. I think that's even more important because I know you can't see anything on here. But when you go to the maps that are PDF format, you'll be able to hone in on your backyard. So that was one of the goals. Provide this information, get it out to the people so they can access it. And of course, when we did this, and I'll go over what we have up here in a little while, when we did this and had the maps done, the first version, and had the information and all the metadata and all that stuff available so that we could get it up on this portal, too, then we decided to inform everybody who participated in the project and those who were anticipating the results, we would tell them that it was available. And there were a lot of people who wanted the information, by the way, because they heard about it. You know, people in the Peconic Estuary Program, Nature Conservancy, etc., wanted to get this information so they could use it in their current projects. So we notified them. And damn, the first things that we got a reply, you missed the sewer district. Oh, I'll tell you about that in a minute. So at any rate, if you notice the handout here, again, the goal of this project was to prepare a inventory of all sewered areas in Suffolk County, meaning the areas there where sewer service was available, okay? And I'll define what that means in a minute. That would be county sewer districts, town sewer districts, village sewer districts. It would also include contractees to sewer districts, which are outside the boundaries of the legislatively established districts, but have arrangements whereby they pump their waste to the sewage treatment plant that serves the district that they're connected with. You have areas that are districts but don't have their own sewage treatment plant. They in turn might pump their waste to a district that does. We also have private sewage treatment plants that provide service to those areas that are usually adjacent to them, and they're private facilities, condominiums, things of that nature. Okay. At this point, when we started this, there wasn't any real comprehensive picture of what all this really entailed. There were a few very small-scale maps that, if you looked at them, you might have an idea of what was going on, but you really couldn't tell what was going on because it wasn't related in a geographic information system sense. Okay? When you go to this level of detail, you have problems because the data that you want to get and portray must be related to boundaries that are accurate, meaning the tax map. So we have all sorts of issues with that. Suffice it to say, we worked through this process over a period of months with the vital assistance of the Department of Health Services because they deal with sewage treatment plants. They had a lot of information. We dealt with the Department of Public Works. They have information on county districts. But they didn't have information on the village and town districts, so we had to reach out to them and try to get them to participate. And so I think we were fairly successful in doing that. And, what we have here is, I think, we can say with confidence, it's the first comprehensive inventory of such information that's been compiled for Suffolk County. So, having said that, what we did was produce an overall coverage here which shows a lot of different types of information. All of this is at tax map scale. So, 585,000 parcels here. When you zoom in on it, you can't see it in that scale, but the larger scale maps you certainly can. And I don't want to go through this really in detail, but you see the categories of information that are shown on the map and listed in the handout. We have all the areas that are in an established, call it sewer district, or an area that is served by a sewer. We also have the sewage treatment plants identified by triangles up there with little points that indicate what that plant is and where it is. So if you, when you come up, at some point you might just want to look at this, and you can see there's a lot of information here. There are county-wide tables. I'll pass this one around to you, and just pass it around. You get an idea what this is like, and that information is also up on the website. It's that's listed on the back of your sheet. So it's a summary of the sewer districts. It's a summary of all of the sewage treatment plants and the information related to those plants. For example, the Speedy's permit number, estimate of permitted flow, things of that nature. When we did the overall view, we thought it would also be of use to the various towns and villages, et cetera, to produce a map for them, where they wouldn't have to look at the smaller scale map. They could look automatically at a larger scale map that they could relate to. So we do have a map for each of the 10 towns, 2 maps for the town of Brookhaven, North and South Shores, such that they could bring up a map that looks like this. Okay? Same information, but you can see tax map parcels here. This particular map shows the northern portion of Brookhaven town, and you can see there's a large patchwork of districts. There's a patchwork of contractees that relate to sewer districts. Those areas are labeled here with respect to which sewage treatment plant they pump to, etc. You can go from the sewage treatment plant number to the table and find out more information about the STP. If you really want to get into it, you can go to the Speedies permit, and go to the EPA website, and find out everything about the STP that you want to find out. So, at least this is in one place, a tool that can be used to look at the big picture, okay? On each of the town maps.
Wait, can I ask you a question? When you say you can go find out about the STP, you can find out actually if it's meeting its permit goals?
All the information, all the compliance reports, the violations, all of that stuff is there.
The number of people served?
I don't know if they have the number of people served.
That's a primary question. We got all this lovely numbers up here, 13% of the county served by sewers, et cetera. Do we have any idea of what the population is
Yes.
that's served?
Yes.
Okay, so could that
Generic.
generic number or within the
No, it's
database?
fine. We'll get to it.
Okay.
Okay. At any rate, the information for each town, whether it's a sewer district, sewage treatment plant, all of that information is listed here.
Is this a real-time map? Where it'll be updated on a regular basis if they add additional information and whatnot?
When we put it out there, Jim, we did get a call from the town of Southhold that, well, you missed the sewage district. And lo and behold, there is one up here, at the tip of Shelter Island. Excuse me. Fisher's Island. And it was, well, that was the purpose of putting it up there. Was for people to take a look at it and say, you missed something, you're wrong, whatever, because, a lot of these boundaries were, based on some, it was I'm telling too many secrets here now.
That's why you're
Let's just say this is a good start, okay? And for the town of Southold, of course, when they said you have a sewer district, they said, well, we missed it because we didn't see any sewage treatment plant, which the health department had a comprehensive list of. And there wasn't a sewage treatment plant. I said, how could it be? Where's the sewer district? That's where we sort of, well, there is no sewage treatment plant. It's essentially, and you guys know about this, it's essentially an area that, the former Army base and a little bit area around that base out there where the harbor is. And I guess it's just like a sludge pit or something. It's a communal system, but it doesn't receive any
Basically a
treatment.
communal septic tank.
Communal,
It is. It's pipes to nowhere.
Yeah.
communal septic tank, that's a new one for me, but
Yeah, we were talking about this, and yeah, that's what it is. It's,
And this is one of the richest islands in the country you're talking about, and they send it to a pit?
yeah.
Yeah, but that's from the original camp. I think most of the houses are on septic.
But it is an established sewer district, according to the information, so, hopefully, maybe on a yearly basis, we'll be able to take these and upgrade it. Correct.
Is there something that we can do for you to help codify that relationship? You had to be given special money, special activity, distract people from their jobs to create this moment in time. But in fact, this is now a database that's registered and metadata filled in. So this is the beginning of what, I've been doing this for a decade. This doesn't just sit and grow by itself.
No, it doesn't.
It needs to have a committed set of operation and maintenance activities
Big
to
time.
keep it going. But also it needs threads that push the information to it, because your staff can't run around and do the job for the various people who are doing this job and go get their maps. They have to be told when they get the permit or get the resolution
Right.
from.
Right.
All right, when you do this and you're almost done, send your as-built to this thing that's now our central nervous system.
But they're mandated.
So what can we do to make that become part of?
It was a lot of work to get to this, and without the help of the agencies involved and everyone else to, run around and collect information. It was new information. Some of it was corrected, get it in a format we could use, etc. To get it in here, then we had to go and had many iterations of these maps. Believe me. And it was a priority project for us in our office. It was a priority project. What happens, over time, there was thought about having some kind of executive order. Sarah's going to talk about this at some point to, require this kind of thing. And, 4 or 5 sewage treatment plants per year come online. There are always maybe additions to these contractees are always being added. You're right, this is a snapshot. I don't know how that will be accomplished because of the effort involved in going out to even the towns and the villages where it's not necessarily so the information is not as readily available to us from them. They're not a county agency.
If I could just point out, you're in a honeymoon period now, because this is fresh, it's recognized as state of the state, it's the best information available. We've built these things for EPA and the Corps of Engineers, and it feels great for a couple of months. And then, all of a sudden, the honeymoon's over, and it becomes, yeah, but that's a little out of date. And then you fall off the peak of, we're the center of the universe, into this, yeah, it used to be. And then, you know how hard it's going to be to get that thing to be updated? And then it becomes a burden. So I would like to get us to do something to promote that resolution you're talking about that says this needs to be maintained so that it continues its freshness. And evergreen is the term people use now.
It's an important thing too, we don't generate, we are not the originators of any of the information that's shown on that map. And in fact, when you look at the credits and you look at the disclaimer, when in this office, it's not.
You don't own it.
And we don't. It was given to us, that's what we show.
To put it very bluntly, the county and the towns are well capable of doing this. If you build a house, let's say you buy a piece of empty land, you build a house on it, okay, and you put a septic system in, that information goes to the health department, okay, there's filed. Next, the tax boys get you, okay, and they don't let go. My point is, more technically, there is an assessment ratio set by the town, assessment number set by the town individually. That number is also communicated to the Real Property Tax Service Bureau over in Riverhead. That's where your county taxes are generated. So when the tax bills are set up by the towns and by the county, comes in as a consolidated bill. The mechanisms, my point is, do exist, at least on the tax sides, to do this. Now, to heck with an executive order, if the system is similar, when a septic system comes in, it's already going to the county. When an STP is built, okay, well, that's regulated by the town. If the system exists to do it on the tax side, basically this, I would suggest it as a public health law. You simply say, okay, all STPs that come in have to be reported to a central collecting person or agency, and you can set that up with almost a data collection point. A nexus point, I think they call it, if I remember my computer language properly. Again, if you can do it with taxes, and if you can do it with a number of other systems, and if Ma Bell can do it with telephones and have a master directory, is it that hard to do it? I know it's staff time, I understand that. But again, if the collection system is there, can't it be grafted on or duplicated?
Good question. I don't have those answers.
Well, that's the kind of thing for a legislator to bite at.
You're right.
Well, I can tell you that every new sewage treatment plant in the county has to be approved by the health department.
Yeah, I know.
So
That's the
we have
system
that.
I'm talking about.
That can be the relay for the
We
health
don't-
department notified planning
That's
to
the-
amend the map.
And basically, you can almost set that up when you do it, since you're getting that access, okay, rather than possibly having a person do it. Is it possible basically to have it, as Tom was saying, a thread into do we have a master program for this in a computer language?
No. We don't even have,
That could be generated, though.
this, you know,
East Hampton is already dealing with some of the issues you're talking about, because East Hampton has a lot of problems that have been kind of buried for a long time. You know, with the sewage treatment plant that they don't know what the heck to do with. You know, we're going through this on a regular basis, and we've been discussing this kind of recordation that you're talking about. That's been a topic. I don't know if you've been to any of those meetings, but that's been a
No.
topic. So this is, I applaud you, because this is so critical, since we're the largest sole source aquifer in the country, and we need to have this kind of thing started. So, yeah,
Well, if
and
health
we have
department-
mechanisms, you
If
know.
health department's already getting it from the, getting SGP information, and I believe it also, I mean, you have to file documents to get a cesspool, okay? The question is, well, maybe it can be done by executive order of the departments, at least on the county side of things, a collection node be set up. If nothing else, drop a piece of paper into a basket. Hey, we've got a new SGP coming online.
Well, you'd have receptivity in East Hampton for this sort of thing.
Yeah,
No
Yeah, well,
question about
there's
it.
9 other towns.
it's,
No, I know
it's,
that, yeah.
it's, the only thing I could say about where this goes in the future, we had, a meeting with,
And so-
Gil Anderson and Deputy Commissioner and Department of Health Services and some other people here, some staff people, to talk about the maps and to talk about the procedure, whatever that may be, to try to update this information. And, other than to figure out a way to do that, and, Walter Hilbert was there, and he said, we get 3 or 4 or 5 plants per year that come online, and we get the permits and things of that nature, and, they will provide information to send it over. There wasn't much more of a defined, organized system to do that, other than, it's a good thing we should do this, and we should figure out a way to do it, and that's where it ended last fall. What happens now, if people get to use this information, this will become more apparent in terms of try to get it to be updated. Now, I can't really address all of those things because conceptually, yes, practically, it's a bigger problem than it appears from the conceptual view.
No, I get that, but again,
The GIS community and the CAD community, they're well along in interoperability. You can
Right.
toss a file back and forth. So there's 3 easy options that you could prescribe in any kind of permit that says when you're done, use these 3 formats, so that you can even hop between software packages, and you guys can plug it into this one, regardless of what the consultant wrote it in or what the town catches it in. Just don't let them come back out to hard copy. So technically, it's not an issue, and nobody should be allowed to duck because they say it's going to be a pain. It's
Right.
just procedural and hey, don't forget to do that.
And I agree with Tom
Which has to
100%.
get
If they're
embedded.
already getting the data flow.
It's institutionalizing it versus
Yes, it is.
technical.
Right.
thing.
Institutionalizing, some of the entities aren't as up to snuff as we would think with respect to their maps, their record keeping,
Cleaning them up.
their, being on a tax map basis, et cetera, so it might not be as clean, as straightforward as it appears, depending on, again, how up to snuff those entities are.
But the 5 or 6 new ones you talked about per year.
Oh, yeah,
The new ones coming in are gonna be
Yes,
flexible
yes.
and addable, that
We
you
should
catch
be
them at
able
the
to-
right time, and you maintain currency that
Yeah,
keeps
the-
this thing on a high level.
The real question is, though, what comes over to Chris's, to the health department. I've seen some of the paperwork flows. I've been involved with SGPs in the past, and there's a fair amount of information. I believe it gets down even to the tax lot number, if I'm not mistaken. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, well, like, the sewage treatment plant itself is marked on a tax map. As far as
Proceeding
the
zone.
catchment area lots, that's not a database.
But if the county charges for,
That's a paper thing that we
at
have
least on
to
the
do a lot
county
of work
side
on.
of things, let's say, let's use Kings Park Sewer 6. You get a county tax bill. There's a county agency that sends out sewer taxes. Okay, you're either on the list or you're not.
Right, but a lot of the new ones coming online are private.
Yeah, true. I understand that, but I'm saying from the county side of things.
We could belabor this indefinitely. I think the point of the CEQ is somewhere along the line, we're gonna have to make a recommendation that this, map and these things be updated on a regular basis for a planning point of view. But the next step that we asked with respect to the sewer districts is how many of these districts meet standards currently. We have a special groundwater protection area plan in Suffolk County, we're a sole source aquifer, and the question here is we got all these plants, how many of them meet state standards? And if they don't meet state standards, what's being done to upgrade them? I mean, that was part of CEQ's, question. Larry?
Yeah, you raise a good point, and also you mentioned the private plants. I think it's alarming, and some of the meat here, we have 153 private plants. Typically, those plants are notorious for not functioning well. And, the scale, the operations, getting operators to run them correctly, and so forth, and maintenance is a real issue. And since planning now is part of real estate, I would hope that your message here would be a real signal to the real estate part of this, that this county is not moving ahead very effectively in trying to control the waste from human populations. And I know they want to barge ahead and just build, but this, I think, is a real take-home message that we can't afford to keep build, and tack on these teeny little treatment plants that may not be functioning hardly at all. So, I think this is great. Congratulations to you, and Lee Koppelman would be proud.
Yeah, take them out.
Can I extend that comment from Larry? I think that's what this was expected to do next. Okay, now we have the infrastructure. How well is it working? Like I said, it may be complying. It says secondary and tertiary. That's the first foray into how well is it working. The Speedies permits and the NIPD's permits will give you a little bit more statistics, but it's really about, okay, how much is that infrastructure doing to catch the nitrogen and not just pass it through to where we know it's going. So it would be great to look in the future to the next level of analysis, which is tertiary.
I mean, this could answer your question here too. As you mentioned, and Andy mentions here too, is resolution number 1205, which is directing Suffolk County Department of Economic Development Planning to file grant application pursuant to
That's my
local
question about an
efficiency
hour ago.
grant permit to the, so maybe the council can make recommendations that you gotta look at these things. You gotta update this map, you gotta look at, we have to look at what are the efficiency of these plants, and we have all these plants. If 500 or 100 of them don't meet standards, why are we gonna propose building new ones?
You keep looking at me.
Well, that's the health department
But
too.
an hour ago, you told me we couldn't ask that question.
Well,
That's what my question for 1206.
well, maybe we can make a recommendation.
That's good to hear.
Can I suggest something?
Yeah.
Let's put a wish list in, or develop a wish list here of what we think needs to be asked in the future as part of this basic data. Okay?
Yeah.
What we think should be.
But we already
additional.
asked questions of the planning department that haven't been answered as part of this.
I know,
thing.
but
They did a
let's get
database
it.
review of
Yeah.
what's there.
Yeah.
Question here is what's operating efficiently,
Well,
what
that's
meets state
one of the
standards,
sets of
and what
questions.
doesn't, and what should be done about it.
That's one set of questions.
They'll
There
all
could be
say
others.
best available technology based
Yeah.
on what they
Yeah,
did
but
initially.
does it meet
And the answer
standards?
is,
Yeah,
the
they
better
do.
one
I
now.
mean, that's a cop-out now. The idea is,
But then you have to
we're gonna
establish what
build
the standards
5
are.
units an
We're not
acre, but
gonna-
we're gonna have a
do
sewage
that.
treatment plant, don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
Well,
they.
it's all
If
set.
we're reviewing these things and 3/4 of them don't meet standards now, why should we be approving all these new plants?
Because
That's
nobody ever
crazy.
looks at what they build them and they don't look at what happens afterwards.
I mean,
Well,
according to
now
health
that
department
happens.
data, how many meet
The
standards?
health department
The
has
design of it
been,
is antiquated anyway.
in
We
the
know
state, working with the state and the Speedies program and doing inspections, and has, really improved the level of performance of a lot of plants.
Well, I
There was
understand
a
it,
big
but
criticism of the chromoglass package plants, but through oversight by the health department, the plants have been, basically made to stay in compliance. And when they get out of compliance, there are issues and there's enforcement.
yeah, but where's this in the database? Where's the health department show how many plants didn't meet standards, how many plants, you know, are bringing.
There is a
compliance?
database. There is a database it's in Microsoft
And how many
Access.
still aren't
and
in
it's-
compliance?
I don't know those numbers off the top of my head. I don't work in that office, but
No, but the information's there. What the
Yeah,
point here
Collect
is
it.
I think,
we're doing planning. Why should we propose building these new plants if they don't work?
I think, Jim, your
And they
idea of
should-
creating a list is good because if we put in a list of what we want to see, then DeWitt and his gang will have to answer them. I'm concerned that when they try to analyze the meat, that they will be in fact squelched unless we request it.
Yeah, because
We have to go on
that's
record.
what we requested it to begin with.
Well, I mean, you've been doing this forever.
Sorry, DeWitt.
Well, DeWitt's just
I'm
the
laughing.
messenger there. He's the guy doing the
I'm
plan.
gonna be laughing. To talk about upgrading, keeping this thing going, we're moving on to another project next week, forget it. I'm joking, but those are real issues. And, if you look at this map, just to close out here a little bit, and I'll get back to your point, Mike, you see this hodgepodge pattern, okay? This is northern Brookhaven. County sewer districts with parcels in the middle of those districts that are not in a district. You have the private plants in purple here, you have contractees in pink to county districts, and the county districts are outlined, and, it's kind of a strange mixture here.
Are any of them living machines?
Excuse me?
Are any of them living machines?
Living?
Yeah, the one in Fisher Island.
It's definitely alive.
Living? I don't know what that means.
Open pit with some stuff growing on it.
Oh, let's take this one off, Barbara. can.
Questions were answered.
So if you look at Brookhaven,
Living machine.
and, I'll leave you with a number if you look at Brookhaven. This is only the northern part, and we'll put this over here.
Like a square, basically, a rainbow square.
Just a
Charles has
a fact, if I can find it here. Brookhaven, for example, and Mike mentioned, or what are you doing, what are the other things you're doing? Brookhaven town, if you look at the other map for Brookhaven, in addition to this one, you'll find out 11% of the town consists of sewer districts. All right? Including contractees, all sewer district, town, village, whatever. Brookhaven town, 2% of the area in the town is served by private.
By acreage.
By acreage. So we have like roughly 13% of the town.
Is that
served by-
population numbers or?
Excuse
No,
me?
acreage.
By acreage.
Acreage,
It's
okay.
You go to places like Southampton,
Right.
you don't see too many colors on a map. Because Southampton, only 2% is covered by sewer district. And less than, 0 rounded off percent is by private. So you have basically a different picture when you go out east. All told, and I think the summary information you have there, it's about 13% of the county is in a sewer district or contracted out area. That doesn't mean that every area within that sewer area is actually connected. Okay, this is just boundaries. All of that, 10,000, whatever it is, 900, what somebody said in Southwest, 10,000, 11,000, 12, I don't know what a number is. Homes are not connected, even though they're in a district. So you got a lot of stuff to figure.
So
We
it's an
didn't go into
overlay without necessarily connectivity.
all that stuff inside, yes. So this is just area within a service.
But we still don't know what the actual population is that's served.
However,
All right, sorry.
I mean, one of the things is DeWitt points out is, if you take the Special Groundwater Protection Area study, the recommendation was 5-acre zoning. So if you go out east, most of the zoning is 5 acres, and you're gonna meet, the discharge standards 99.9% of the time. However, when you start going west, the density goes up, and they exceed the acre density of zoning, and then they have to build sewage treatment plants. But now the big push on is, we need development, so these guys want to come in with 10, 12, 15 units an acre, and their thing is, don't worry, we're going to build a sewage treatment plant, so there's going to be no contamination.
Amen.
But the CEQ said, well, we want an inventory of the existing sewage treatment plants, and we want to know how many of those actually meet standards and how many don't. In order to get a handle on this thing for future growth, where everybody promises we're going to build a private sewage treatment plant, and they don't work.
That's one of the questions that we have to have from Health Department. What is the compliance rate? Now, their inspector numbers, this was the subject of a very large debate at the legislature, their inspector numbers are down. I don't even know if we can rely necessarily on some of these numbers.
Well, some of the, DeWitt said the Speedy's numbers, I assume the Speedy's going to tell you whether or not they meet standards or they don't meet standards.
So can you,
Somebody has to analyze
Well, we
those.
have,
can you imagine us asking that, or recommending that that be asked as part of 1205?
Sure, but it's already been asked. We already sent those questionnaires into the planning, and this is what came out of the end of the pipeline without those other questions
And we
being
get
answered.
get a
Dave
small
Delizio
group
also.
together to develop
I don't think it's been asked.
sort of a follow-up question.
I think that's a good idea. Maybe we
And
should
then
get
we can come back
a
to,
small group together and, analyze what you people want and send it to the legislature and the planning department, and health department.
that's basically what we need to do. Now, we got some of this data previously. Dan Galizio, before he left, had given us a hour-long presentation on some of these sewer issues.
So that was why we got involved.
I know, that was the start of it. Okay, but it has some of the older data, which we can use to look at some of the newer data and see.
I mean, the database is great. You say, here's all the sewage treatment plants, but the next stage is, well, if none of them meet standards, what good are they? That's the important part.
Again, I do know that the county has been claiming that the standards have been increasing. They've been basically playing with the private STPs and trying to get them much more into compliance and fixing the problems with the last, chromographs, whatever the heck it is.
We've just started
But-
the era of a TMDL for nitrogen in the southern shore to the Great South Bay. We haven't gotten that done yet. When that's done, we have to do some more cutbacks. Therefore, the standards and the allocations of releases, or permittable releases, will change. So even asking the question now and getting all greens, as everybody's fine, check, 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 you're fine until the TMDL gets finished. And then everybody's likely to face another ratcheting down, or up, whichever way you want to call it, on the nitrogen controls. So it's a good question to ask with enough precision to anticipate where we're going, not just get written off as we checked that box, everybody's looking good based on speedies,
No, right.
based on
So
the
we need
last
the
10
actual
years
number.
backwards.
You know, if DEC starts changing the standards on us, that what you're basically saying is going to come into play. And they're already talking about doing
EPA
it.
would do the standard, TEC would.
Basically, then, what you're saying is we should get a small group together here.
Yeah,
and,
and find out what
Yeah,
what we
see
did
what-
send
see
in
what
the
we need to do.
past, because I remember there were a lot of additional things besides just mapping the sewer districts.
Yeah.
And look at that and make further recommendations to the, legislature, the county exec, the health department and the planning department as to how this should proceed. I mean, because they got the resolution, they had to do a grant study to,
We have at least two people here who kind of understand this stuff. And occasionally talk. Well, you're head of the Waste Institute.
all right, have we belabored this enough? And we'll form a committee. Who should we form on a committee? Larry, Tom,
I'll do it.
Larry
I'll
and
do it.
I
Tom.
think Gloria, or you,
all right, Al.
Jim, just one Mike had a question about, yes.
I'm still
Yes.
trying to figure out,
Yes.
in a generalized way,
No,
not
you-
actually asking for an actual number, but in a generalized way, we got 1.5 million people in this
Yeah.
county. How many people do you think, given the data that we've been seeing, how many people are served?
Okay,
Aye.
the answer is, that work is underway. Matter of fact,
You can't even get a guesstimate?
we don't, I can tell you right now that the population in Babylon that is in a sewered area is 158,798 according to our demographer. Now, that's gonna be done for all of these areas, based on putting the census block and all that stuff, tracks and all that stuff on
That's a
there.
work in progress.
Peter's the one doing it, he's doing it for the whole county.
So,
We will have a number within a service area, okay?
And then you add that stuff up, is that a proper
And then
mathematical
we'll
way
add
of
it
doing
up, and then we can give you, you know, and so many people in Suffolk County are in a service area, and how many are not, and how much the growth will be inside the service area, and what the potential growth is for outside the service area. So you get the population. The land use is the same things, the same numbers are going to be generated by our standard categories for sewer service areas and outside sewer
I mean,
service.
because you understand that that's going to have an impact on what Tom was talking about, the TMDLs on the Great South Bay. Once we're
Yes.
able to determine to some degree, just
That's-
based upon population, it
that's-
won't be a complete picture, but we'll be able to look at some of the inputs.
And that's, because those very topics have already been asked by people in the Peconic Estuary Program and Nature Conservancy for the Great South Bay. They're already and actually USGS wanted access to the coverages because they're doing a nitrate trends and groundwater study over the past X number of years too. So as this information gets used, some of those things will
So it's
come
not
out.
finished yet, is that a better answer of putting?
We're working on the
better way of putting
demographics,
it?
we're working on land use, then we'll have a region-wide picture, but it's really, you know, done at the local level, so you can go back down to the town level, you can go back down to any level you want, and you can figure out what the numbers are.
Do you have the resources you need to keep it going, or is it something that we can do to?
Well, they're applying for that grant, so it's.
This was not done, this is in-house, and, you know, I don't want to make projections about whether we have resources to do anything. That's not my situation.
How do you?
Sarah can,
how do you- Blame it on Sarah. I'm sorry, DeWitt, how do you reflect seasonal population changes, like in East Hampton, we have under 20,000 year-round, and during 3 months of the year, we have 100,000+ year-round. How does that play into all this? Is that reflected at all or not?
You know, I'll have to check with a person who's doing that, that's Peter Lambert, and the question of seasonality typically does deal with that. I don't have an answer for you right now. but-
Because not only do we have, you know, it impacts the waters as well, because there's all kinds of, you know, the boating and all
Yep.
that sort of stuff.
Big
So-
time, big time.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll-
the seasonal with the boats, for example.
Right.
Yep, and I'll ask him about that, and see if in fact
He
he's
did
gonna
tell you what they
incorporate
did.
something.
This,
along
this
those
goes
lines.
back to some of the discussions that we had early on, and that was the implications of transfer of development rights, where we transfer all this stuff into one area from another area to get the treatment plants have not been designed to hold the new influx of whatever, and, you know, I think you know better than I certainly, but how you have to start thinking about integrating all this into your planning
No,
efforts.
You're right, I mean, in the extension of that, as Tom mentioned, you got the coastal zone here. We had a coastal zone management plan years ago implemented by the Fed, and they came out with nitrate standards, you know, for the coastal waters and everything else. And technically, they look at development along the coastal zones and what kind of sewage treatment it has and everything else. And basically, you start to look at it and you say, well, if the coastal water exceeds the nitrate standards, you gotta propose new development in there. Maybe you shouldn't allow it in there because they already exceed the nitrate standard. Or what level of treatment do they want? So this all goes back to, you know, key planning areas. It goes back 30 years.
Well, the CZM never really tried to get as far as you just mentioned, to my knowledge, because they just can't. They can get to a consistency rule. You're consistent or inconsistent. You're putting in an industrial area where it's supposed to be farmland, where your plan said it's going to be farmland. The hop from the federal CZM view to the towns that write the parcel level permits is, that's the hop.
No, you're absolutely right, but I'm saying that from a planning
notion of planning,
perspective
though, and
point of view,
cumulative point of view is
they
what-
set some policies and some guidelines.
And we can.
And left it open to the local municipalities to come up with CZM plans and everything else, but they're not doing it, they're not implementing it.
Larry and I both ran an LWRP,
Those are deadly.
which came out of the CZM, and the one, we never got really guidance on any of this stuff. Yeah, we tried to push development away from the coastline because of flooding issues, You know, minor other little things like that.
Find that out.
Okay, but again, we were, and in certain low-lying areas, for example, we did try and limit housing as best we could. But the program, one, didn't have enough teeth in it, and two, I can tell you for a fact, because I participated in the drafting of a lot of it, that the nitrate levels and the pollution levels really didn't come into play. It was just more, is there going to be an impact on the wetland? And just sort of, but we were kind of dependent upon health services. They were the ones who...
CDM does identify impacts on local water bodies from nitrates. They do,
Yeah, it did.
They do have something in there, but
It's very
nobody
weak language.
enforces it or even looks
It's,
at it.
Jim, it's very, very weak language. I mean, again, I tried in my
Well,
home
I'm not
villages.
saying it should be enforced,
Yeah.
but it points to a problem, you know, a pollution problem on Long Island, and the
Well,
thing comes down to is how are you gonna plan for all these
Well,
things?
we got another problem coming up. For example, Sewer 6 in Smithtown. Right now, there's an ocean outfall pipe going 1,500 feet out into Smithtown Bay on a plant that I think has 325 or 350,000 gallons per day discharge. And that's all going out over there now. Supposedly, it meets the TMDLs that are in place, and it has been upgraded. We've dealt with a lot of those upgrade issues here. But they're talking about expanding it to about 600,000, increasing the service area, and putting basically on land discharge and possibly shutting down that pipe.
And the receiving waters where that pipe goes is one of the lowest lows for dissolved
Yeah,
oxygen.
I know,
It's
that's-
already a bullseye, as if the
Yeah.
pipe is causing it, and it's not necessarily, because the groundwater is running it too. But
Yeah,
that's gonna be a
I
tough
agree with you
issue.
100%. My other problem is that on a rising tide, that pipe kind of sends everything back my way. Now, it may be cleansed water, okay? Yeah, it should go to your harbor, not mine. But it may be a cleansed water, but still there's a large pulse of nitrogen in there, whatever that amount of nitrogen might be. My point, though, is if that pipe gets shut off because they're trying to protect Long Island Sound, they're going to go to a 600,000 gallon a day on-land discharge. And that right now is pointed, for example, at Sunken Meadow Creek. There's a direct flow. Once the effluent drops, say, 80 feet or so, the groundwater takes it north about 400 yards, and it's in the creek. That's a heck of a pulse. My point is, there's no good options. If they shut off that one, what's going to happen? We're going to get a large pulse on the land.
Yeah, but the thing here
I'm
is
just giving
depends
you an
upon how they
example of the
upgrade the
problem.
sewage treatment plant. If they make it a tertiary treatment plant, and they
Well,
install all the
there's-
latest stuff, and the nitrates coming out of the plant are not gonna exceed the levels,
Yeah,
then
but
you're
if
not
you
gonna
got
get
six-
that load on a tertiary.
Yeah, but if you have an
know.
overall load, I mean, let's say they drop it from 10 to 4, something like that. What is it, 4 pounds a day, whatever. You're still going to have, my point is, you're still going to have 600,000 gallons worth of this stuff coming down. And again, even if it's treated and a lot of the nitrogen has been removed, you're going to have a large pulse. That's just that particular problem. I'm just saying that that may start occurring elsewhere, and these are some of the questions we should start asking.
Well, also, you gotta look at the standards. Maybe the standards should be lowered.
Well, yeah, I'd like to see 0, but I don't think that's
Well,
technically possible.
what does current technology allow for? You know, at what rate, and what are they letting go through the plants? And if they expand this thing, maybe they should make them
Well,
require
again,
to lower the rates.
DPW through the years has been trying to upgrade plants. Sewer 6, for example, is tertiary at this point in time. I think it used to release 10 pounds. I forget what the numbers are, they're blanking on them. Now they're down to about 4, something like that. Question is that plant the only plant like that, or are they doing it elsewhere?
Well,
Again, we
that-
just don't know.
That's what I'm saying. You
Yeah.
gotta look at these things.
These
You got
are
a
the
map that
issues we
shows
need
all
to
these
look at.
plants, but nobody knows what's coming out the pipe.
I can tell you the surface water discharge standards are more stringent than the groundwater discharge standards.
But groundwater, the nitrogen level in groundwater from your own reports have increased alarmingly since the 1980s, right?
Yeah.
200% or something like that?
Which really represents about a milligram per liter.
So, just saying we're going to take it out of Long Island Sound and put it on the ground is, I don't think necessarily.
Right, but the DEC is probably making them meet 4 or 5 for a surface water discharge into the,
Bigs per liter.
an abatement off the sound, whereas if they go to a land discharge which goes to groundwater, they'll be allowed to go to 10.
Yeah, but still, then you have the problem on the Great South Bay, where there's a high suspicion that the nitrogen pulses coming in are possibly causing some of the problems that we're seeing on it. No good answers.
Is the Montauk Yacht Club listed on that? I didn't see it on the sewer treatment plant.
A little red mark up there.
Is it?
No,
No, wait,
be up the top of that.
yeah.
Right here, Montauk
Somewhere
Yacht
along
Club?
in there, yeah.
We have no record from anyone that there's an STP there. Is there an STP there? Or is it just,
I don't know, I just know they got some serious problems.
all right.
That's where they keep the lobsters.
They got effluent in the parking lot.
Not that we know of.
Not that you know. Well,
Don't eat there again. It's not
yeah,
that's it.
it's serious.
We're gonna form a committee, and we're gonna look at the information, and make recommendations back to the planning department, the legislature, and county that can help. All right? So I think maybe if we move on, is
Thanks
Nick
to it.
around?
Yeah. It's a heroic job that you guys have
Yeah,
done.
it's really incredible.
I mean,
Thank God.
I've never seen information like this before. It really is an eye-opener.
It's just scratching the surface,
Sarah?
Tom.
Sarah, thank you
Yes.
for allowing the department to pursue this.
Well,
Working on
I
this.
just want to say thanks to DeWitt for taking this idea and running with it and, you know, engaging pretty much the entire department, whatever we have left of people, to work on this. I think that this will help inform discussions that we've all wanted to have around this table. And without kind of the basic information of population served, where these districts are, we couldn't have that conversation, or at least an informed discussion. And this will help advance that discussion. We're looking forward to it.
It's an incredible
Sarah,
task.
I get the sense, without knowing the staff or the budgeting at all, that we might hijack some people towards a topic that we clearly think is important. Appreciate what you're doing. Is there anything that we can do as a committee to create more support or more support for your staff's continuance of this? We were talking about how getting it together initially is hard, and you're in this period now of this stuff is great. But then in a couple of months or half a year, when new things aren't in it, it would be labeled as, well, you know, it's a little bit out of date.
Well,
And you drop off that precipitously. What can we do to make sure that you guys have enough ongoing operation and maintenance capacity to keep it as fresh as it is?
Thank you. We've actually, before this project was completed, at least the current stage, we had conversations with the two county departments that gave us the source information, Health Department and the Department of Public Works, to prevent that very thing. So we've reached some agreement, I'm looking at DeWitt, to have some sort of regular information so that this doesn't become outdated. I doubt we have the resources to produce these pretty maps every time there's a new SDP or whatever change to the data set, but it will be available online.
The Twit says he'll put it on his Facebook, he said.
Oh, great! Fantastic. But I appreciate your offer. You know, I will definitely call on members of CEQ if we need, you know, additional resources and see. But this is on everyone's radar screen right now, and it will continue to be. I just wanted to make a brief announcement because I know I informed Chairwoman Russo as well as Vice Chair Bagg on our new addition. And I want to thank all to CEQ, and I want to thank all around the table who helped make this possible. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
And Andy, thank you for your ongoing help. Just wanted to say it's a pleasure to have you back in this capacity. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just for a second. Sarah and Legislator Hahn, you came in a little bit late. You missed part of the discussion. We had a very interesting discussion on trying to collate data from the various departments, some of whom have that data, and trying to sort of centralize it to continue to green this map up, as Tom was saying, we've been able to identify a couple of areas where some of that data might lie, and that's maybe something that we would be looking at in the future. We were talking, somebody mentioned something about an executive order possibly from the executive, talking about directing departments to continue furnishing information, things like that, et cetera. Again, because we don't want to have the maps outdated. And then we also had a very vigorous discussion about further questions that this stuff generated. I think it was almost half an hour that we were talking. So
Definitely.
yeah,
And
just want to
also,
let you know about that.
also, I just want to raise something that we have just drafted, and it's about to be issued a request for proposals for us to complete the comprehensive plan. So, to date, we've received $490,000 through NIMTEC, the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council, to conduct a comprehensive plan. This is one part of that, as well as Loretta's open space master list evaluation of open space priorities for the county. I'm happy to note that to date, we've used the resources to fund staff time. Moving forward, what we're going to do is look at hiring consultants to help us with completing the remaining tasks. So if there's any tasks that CEQ comes up with that that you think should be part of the comprehensive plan, let me know so that we can give that to consultants or divide that among ourselves to work on. Thanks.
All right, if I can move on the agenda, the next thing is the update by Nick of the golf course, West Sable Golf Course vector ditch.
Thanks, Jim. I didn't realize this was on the agenda. I had spoken to Chris prior to. I guess it's an arrangement whereby Suffolk County DPW Vector Control will notify the CEQ if and when they go out and do what I would describe as routine maintenance of existing mosquito ditching on county meadows and wetlands. That was the case at my request. We needed Vector Control to come over to West Sable Golf Course to perform some maintenance on a ditch as it's depicted on that second page after the email. As a result of the hurricane, a lot of debris from the Great South Bay wound up into these ditches. A lot of C&D, some rafting of Phragmites, reed vegetation, that kind of thing. And so we have, where it shows the culvert, we have a tidal valve, a flapper valve, that allows for one directional flow from the golf course. There's a number of freshwater ponds and drainage ditches, creeks, what have you, on the golf course that drain out onto the meadow and ultimately to the bay. So there's a valve there, galvanized valve on that culvert, which was functioning. However, the two parallel ditches that run to the main ditch from that culvert the flow was impeded by some debris. So I'd asked Vector Control to come out and simply do some routine maintenance. They actually wound up doing it by hand. It was that inconsequential. So it's probably more than you wanted or needed to know. But I guess there's a policy in place for us to notify you.
If I'm reading the map correctly, you've got the area of flooding on the right, or to the east, and then it goes through the culvert down to the bottom of the page, and then goes into the mosquito ditch over there,
right
to the bottom of the page. So that's the water flow?
Yep.
Okay.
There's a natural river, a creek. It's they call it. Some people call it Dutchman's. It shows up on the USGS as Indian Creek, and that's from the. It comes from the northwest and flows southeast and ultimately out into the bay.
And if I remember correctly, the maintenance standards are it's just clear out the gunk that's in there. You're not expanding or
no, they're not
deep or anything like
right.
that.
They do side cast of material, but they didn't even take the ditcher in there. They just did. A couple of crews came in and they have better access and ability to get out there than our guys on the golf course do. So it's just a cooperative effort, and appreciate Vector. They've obviously had their hands full in other places doing the same
One
thing.
last question, were any golfers harmed during the,
Actually, that was part of the motivation to get them out there, because the golfers, unfortunately, they returned last Friday, so that's always a sad day. But they're back March 14th, but we got the work done ahead of that.
so none were harmed? Okay.
So are we gonna ban golfers?
No.
If we can ban sports drinks and, stuff like that, let's
All right, so that's within the
do
confines of the finding statement of the vector control DGEIS. So secret's been completed, there's no problems with that. Next on the agenda is CAC concerns. Joy, no concerns?
She's not concerned.
I am concerned.
Thank you for coming, though. It's always a pleasure to see you.
I always come.
I know, but that's really all the wonder does.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, motion for adjourn?
I have a question
Oh,
for you.
yes.
CEQ, going back for many years, when you were just a young man, you had a pretty close relationship with the county executive. And a year or so ago, we wrote a letter to the county exec asking him to, come down and learn a little bit about CEQ and what have you. And I was wondering if we've ever had a courtesy of a response.
Not that I know of. We have the representative from the county exec's office right here.
Who represents the county
Who
exec's office?
represents the county exec's office as well as ACQ in our reviews before we got staff, so I'll leave it to him to respond.
Perhaps he is the response.
Perhaps, that's a good point.
I will deliver your message.
If you can find them, redeliver
He's well trained. That's a good
I just
response.
think it would be nice to try to develop that relationship a little bit. And, you have a group of volunteers here that work hard to help them with environmental concerns. And the county exec very often personally has come to CEQ in the past. And, I think it would be a healthy thing to continue.
Sometimes come to execute us.
So,
You might be delightfully surprised.
that's all I have.
I have a CAC question for Kara. What is happening that we need to know about?
Keep it brief.
I can't think of anything at the time.
Okay.
Okay, motion to adjourn. Michael?
Motion to
seconded?
adjourn.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, thank you for coming, everybody. Pleasure.
John,
Thank you for the opportunity.
John.